Greetings, Madam Shamira, and to our fellow classmates. This is our presentation for our film review on the movie La Luna. My name is Michelle, and here is my partner, Yiting. Now, we'll just
Hi.
go straight into the introduction.
So the chosen film for this assignment is the Malaysian-Singaporean romantic comedy La Luna, which was released in 2023, as well as written and directed by M. Raihan Halim. The film stars Shahezi Sam and Sharifah Amani in the leading roles and takes place in the conservative rural village of Kampung Braspasa, headed by the tyrannical Tok Hassan, played by Wan Hanafi Su, who is placed at odds against an urban businesswoman, Hani Abdullah, when she opens the titular La Luna, a lingerie store at the outskirts of the village. The concept of intersectionality was first developed by civil rights advocate and critical race scholar Kimberly Williams Crenshaw in 1989 and concerns a multi-layered view of inequality and individualized forms of oppression that considers the various overlapping aspects of individual identity. This can include gender, race, sexuality, religion, as well as other social factors that impact the treatment of an individual within society and the dimensions of privilege they may possess or lack relative to other individuals within the same society. La Luna being a Malaysian film set in Malaysia, specifically in the fictional Malay village or kampong of Bras Basah, features the intersection of not only gender and race, but also culture and religion, all of which being poignant aspects of Malay identity and daily life. Now, the dominant religion in Malaysia is Islam, which is primarily practiced by the Malay ethnic group in Malaysia. And this is illustrated clearly in La Luna, where religious announcements are blared all over by speakers, villagers gather for daily prayers at the mosque, and flyers are like the one currently being shown in this screenshot are posted around the village with the message, God is watching. So the movie's opening sequence shows a series of these signs in succession, plastered everywhere from the restaurants to farm fences. And this establishes the significance of religion within Kampung Braspasa and the oppressive presence of religious authority before the viewers even get a glimpse of the main antagonist of this movie, or any of the other characters to speak of. So one of the most prominent examples of the power dynamics between men and women in La Luna and its intersectionality with religion is the character of Yam, a woman who is being abused by her mentally unstable husband, Pat. Both Pat and Tok Hassan, the villain of the film, cite Islamic principles as justification for husbands to mistreat and abuse their wives under the pretense of it being discipline. Now, I know the screenshot does say the laws of the village, but the village laws are obviously based off of the religious doctrine of Islam. So basically, they're using religion as a tool to justify exerting control over women and inflicting violence on women and establishing the sort of oppressive patriarchal structure that favors men and puts all the power and influence in the hands of men versus women who are sort of expected to submit and be subordinate to men. And while where abuse isn't involved in the less extreme cases, you still see the policing of women's bodies by the male figures in their life. Here, it's a father and daughter. Salihin is playing this sort of overprotective father figure, and it's kind of fitting that he's also in his in his police uniform as he is policing his daughter's bodily autonomy. And while he ultimately means well for his daughter, there are still many instances in the film, and this being one of them, where he attempts to exert control over her and prevent her from going out with a fellow classmate, Yazid. And even after he finally relents, he still goes out of his way to intimidate Yazid when he comes to pick up Azura for their date. And now we get to the point of self-censorship. So despite taking a more liberal stance on issues concerning female sexuality and women's bodily autonomy, the film does adhere to the more conservative standards placed on locally produced media, resulting in the film self-censoring by alluding to various sexual acts without actually showing them. With one notable example here, being shots of various background characters' shocked expressions, including Yazid's, who is this kid looking a little traumatized when a tryst between Ena and Ayop his parents, is accidentally broadcasted across the village. Well, various female characters do awaken to their own agency and are able to assert their own bodily autonomy to stand on equal grounds with their husbands in the film because of the influence of Hani's progressive values, and thus are able to use their femininity and sexuality to their advantage. But in any case, sex and female sexuality in particular still remain taboo subjects in Malaysia, and you don't really get to discuss those topics outside of maybe a clinical context. So while the film is pushing a more sex positive narrative that frames sex and sexuality as empowering, it's still never actually stated or spoken in the film, nor is the act actually shown because of the strict rules and persistent conservatism within the Malaysian entertainment industry as well as Malaysian society at large. So while suggestive and even overtly explicit scenes are very much par for the course in Western films, such scenes are usually either heavily censored or just straight up cut out of the film entirely. And any film that features any sort of explicit scene can often be banned from screening or release in Malaysia. So a lot of times films like La Luna will have to self-censor even if they attempt to address the topic of sex and sexuality, just so their film can actually reach their target audiences. So I will now pass the floor to Michelle. Take it away.
Thank you, Yiting, for that very thorough analysis. So now we move on to the second point of analysis in this assignment, which is feminism. And La Luna is easily a feminist film for its message of female empowerment and the strong female characters. There's such as Hani and Azura. So out of the various movements of feminism that can be found in this movie, sex positive feminism is one of the loudest, if not the loudest one. And we chose to analyze this feminist thought in this movie because we thought it would be interesting to um, talk about sex positivity in um, conservative backdrops such as the Malay Muslim community of Kampung Bras So, sex positive feminism is also known as sex positivity and being pro-sex, and it is a branch of feminist thought that advocates for being open, non-judgmental, and being liberated in your sexual expression and sexuality. And the movement promotes very important concepts such as consent, pleasure, and sexual agency to abolish stigma and shame and embracing one's sexual experiences and sensuality. And a predominant principle in sex positive feminism is that as long as it is consensual and does not harm anybody, it shouldn't be shamed. I will eventually explain a little bit more about sex positive feminism as I talk about the scenes where these values can be found. So the first value of sex positive feminism that is found in this movie is encouraging women to embrace their femininity and sexuality. In this scene, the first customer of La Luna, Yazid's mother from earlier in this presentation, her name is Enna. She is seen browsing the store, but it doesn't take her long before she decides what she wants to buy, which is just a pair of solid colored panties that are very plain. And Honey, Honey, who was bickering earlier with Azura about not allowing her to work for her at La Luna because she's a student, she she stops bickering with Azura and she recommends the red lingerie set to Enna, being the entrepreneur that she is. And Azura jumps in to support Honey, also in an attempt to impress her potential employer. So you can see in this subtitle, Honey says, perhaps when you wear this, you'll be more confident. And Enna, she discreetly declines because she thinks it's absurd for her to wear something like that. In many cases, for Asian women, it's it can be intimidating to buy something that looks sensual. As you can see, the lingerie set is the covered in lace and it's bright red. But eventually Anna does go home with the set because Hani and Azura offer it to her on the house. And later in the movie, Anna does try on the set, and her husband, he sees the red bra strap peeking out of her dress. In a related scene, it follows Anna and her husband's activities again. After their little session is just broadcasted to the entire kampong, the women in the village are actually seen immediately dialing their phones, calling their husbands, telling them that they want to go to La Luna because while the men are horrified, while the men and children and lots of other people are horrified at the live podcast that Anna and her husband accidentally put on air, the women were actually excited to go and purchase their own lingerie set in hopes that they would, revive their own sexual relationship with their husbands. As you can see, they're very excited in here. Um, the shop is filled with customers, it's swarming with women, and it it reaches news outlets that the La Luna lingerie shop in Kampung Basa is doing very good, and it has evidently lifted the spirits of the women in the kampung. So the next issue related to sex positivity in here is addressing issues of stigma and shame. So in this scene, Honey bumps into Yam at a shop. Yiting mentioned earlier that Yam is being abused by her husband, and this is actually the scene where Honey, um, this is the initial scene where Honey discovers that. So over here, she greets Yam, warmly and says that he would notice Yam standing outside of her shop every day, and she's always wanted to invite her inside. But Yam says that her husband wouldn't like it if she wears those sorts of things being lingerie. Here, Honey responds by saying that you don't have to buy my products for your husband's sake. She is telling Yam that lingerie is made for women anyway. It's for your own body. It shouldn't matter what your husband thinks. Lingerie, such as that bright red lacy set, it doesn't have to be for the purpose of initiating an intimate moment. It could also be for a woman who wants to feel good about herself. And studies have also shown that when you dress up or pamper yourself, it actually does boost your self-image and your self-esteem. And an important message in this scene addresses how in a Malay community like Kampung Basa, privacy and modesty are associated with stigmatizing sexual desire. And there is a lot of cultural baggage connected to this and historical links to the patriarchy.
So being a film set in Malaysia, right? La Luna includes a lot of the elements of Malaysian culture, daily life, and obviously social issues in its depiction of the very uh, archetypal, I guess, stereotypical conservative rural village that is in the fictional Kampung Bras-Basah. And in this film, I decided to take a more semiotic or mise-en-scène type of approach to the analysis. So I was mostly looking through like the filming techniques. And one main technique that I've noticed throughout is that La Luna and Tok Hasan are sort of juxtaposed through their lighting and color grading that reflects the conflict between the two characters, which are Hani and obviously Tok Hasan, as well as their ideologies. So there's also another very interesting a very interesting motif that I noticed in the film where basically when we first are introduced to Tok Hasan in his office, he keeps a parrot in there. And that parrot is very bright, very colorful, very noisy. And every time he meets a bit of resistance in trying to remove La Luna, the parrot screeches and annoys the heck out of him. So kind of paralleling the other thing in the village that's very bright, very colorful, very noisy, and also annoys the heck out of him, aka La Luna. But the thing about La Luna obviously is that it is also sort of restricted to the censorship, to the confinements of censorship in the Malaysian film industry, which is still very conservative, and any type of media or art that deviates from those conservative standards will tend to get a lot of backlash or just straight up be impeded from actually being released and therefore reaching the desired audience. So La Luna obviously has to take some precautions, I guess, to not upset the Malaysian film censorship board too much. On to Michelle's personal response.
Thank you. So for my personal response, I chose a contextual approach because I wanted to uh I was observing how certain contexts like culture, religion, um affect how the audience for this movie and how the characters in this movie would react and also portray um such such values about sex in Malaysia. So the societal and cultural norms reflected in La Luna are a result of intersectionality um between race, religion, and geography. Kampung Bras Basah is situated in the countryside, and the demographic is predominantly Malay Muslim. We barely see, I don't think we see any other characters aside from Malays in the movie. And Malaysia is one of the many Asian countries that still practice conservativeness and modesty. So things that are related to sexuality are considered taboo here, even though we have urban cities like Kuala Lumpur and we have the internet to self-educate. It's still it is still an attitude that will be hard to remove so long as religion is still something that is emphasized, and so long as there are people who refuse to think critically about what they are being indoctrinated to believe. This is not to say that religion is a bad thing. It is just that unfortunately people manipulate religion in a way to um, perpetuate propaganda and radical opinions, such as how Tok Hassan refuses to see La Luna as something beneficial for the women in his kampung. Women who live in the countryside probably um, don't have access to lingerie that is comfortable and probably maybe affordable. It's he refuses to see past the benefits and just thinks that La Luna is bad, La Luna is promoting promiscuity, La Luna is going to pollute the purity of my village. And that is the end of our presentation. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you.